Hey everyone, this is Chickeneater3. I'm joined by FrosT and Shiny, and we're going to bring you the first installment of the HD podcast, where we're talking about a lot of HD related stuff without actually playing HD because we all finished our attacks today. So I've been a player of this game for 18 years, and I've loved it since day one. And why don't you guys also introduce yourselves?
Sure. Do you want me to? I go first. So my name's Colin. I've been playing since 2004, on and off, and it always just sucks me back in. I think the format of the game is great. The formula to success is can be very different. So there's a lot of different viable strategies and ways you can play the game, and it just keeps you coming back for more.
Yeah, not the same thing. I started in 2001. I was on, the Microsoft MSN gaming zone, probably playing Jedi Knight and a little bit of Age of Empires, and everybody spammed the referral links in there. And then I kept playing until it went free. It went pay to play, and I actually didn't play the pay to play. Then came back for free. But then I started helping the original creator in 2008 to take over programming tasks and try and maintain it because he wasn't doing it anymore, and eventually bought it from him in 2012.
Nice. And now you're the proud owner of High Descent.
And now I am the proud owner of High Descent.
Yeah, and this wonderful community. So I think one thing that just keeps me going is the people in High Descent. The idea that you're playing against so many smart people and that you have to really match wits with people who think about the game differently. That's just one huge thing that makes HD fun, even though the game just goes on forever. There's always a reason to play another season to see if you're smarter than your peers. And if you're not, then you'll learn how come. Yeah. So what's your HD backstory / history? Like what happened to you as a young player, and how did you develop into the player that you are now?
I'm going to say I was always a second tier player, and so my favorite part was the one season. I think it was a big season. I got my first plaque back in like Generation 2, Season 2, Generation 4 maybe. But that was like the only season where I was ever at the top. Probably felt like how Lancelot felt last season. Him and I were probably in that same category where we were never as good as that top tier, but always had fun trying.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm 37 now, and so I would have been in my teens when I actually first started playing. So my account is 20 years old, but I did also play before it was pay to play. So it was in high school, and I jumped in. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. Couldn't tell you what to do with the Moorish churl back in the day. But after it wasn't pay to play anymore, I joined back, and I was very lucky to get caught up in a alliance called the Bounty Hunters. So Sir Vincent III led us, and he was able to sort of bring us along, teach us sort of like some of the fundamentals of the game, and then in time I was able to connect with more people through the boards. Like the town hall was really busy, and a lot of discussions on MSN Messenger with players much better than me. And it was really cool to just sort of hear the things that they had to say. And I think what I love about HD is you'll hear something, you'll try it out, and then you just have like a direct result. Does this work? Okay, great, cool. If this doesn't work, try something different next season. So I've come back on and off over the years, and I just came back this year in 2024. Had no idea what I was doing in January. Watched a great player dominate a season, and took the formula from there.
Yeah, for me, I started in high school just like FrosT, so I'm 34. So I think if we were in the same place, we would have gone to high school together. You would have, I think, been like a junior or senior, and I would be a freshman or something. But we're around the same age. And I started playing in that time period where you couldn't really spy someone without paying for it. So you were just blindly attacking people and hoping for the best. And we were just comparing, like, who did this guy beat and who did he lose to? And do I have the confidence to just attack a guy that I can't see? That was HD back then. My first serious alliance was the Shifters. The Shifters
Yeah.
were a very powerful alliance, played with some really, really good players. And I was so excited. It was like being accepted into Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, I got my letter in the mail, and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm part of this team. I was like one of the lower ranked players in the team, but they were all really comfortable with me and yeah, super interested in talking to me and teaching me. And I would say most of my play style these days is molded by YB. Just constantly fighting with him for a span of years and years causes me to play the certain style that I do. And yeah, still have like PTSD from YB. But yeah, that's my HD backstory. So before we get into like, the meat and the potatoes, what's your favorite memory from HD? I know it's hard to pick one, but maybe just like a fond memory from this game.
I mean, mine's hanging on my wall. Where is it? Right over here. I got my plaque right. I mean, it's tiny. You guys can't see it from there, but that's it right there. Is my plaque is still on my wall. I've had that 15, however many years now.
I say for me, it would be the conversations that I had on MSN Messenger. I found that I learned a lot in those experiences. We would scroll each other our emails. We'd go into MSN Messenger, plop it in there, and poop, someone would sign on, and they'd, hey, did you do your tax? And hey, who did you hit? Or hey, can you share your target list with me? Or hey, can you spy this person for me? Like it was really cool to just be working together with people all around the world. Like I remember talking with like Jim, for example, who was in Greece, and or Ben, who was like in Australia, and like I'm in Canada here myself, and it's really cool to connect with people from all over the world. This is a North American podcast here tonight, but there's great players and people in our community from all over the world, and I would say that's my answer.
Yeah, for me, it was also the same. I think to collaborate with the dev team to kind of make positive changes to the game was really cool because the dev team is filled with a lot of smart people who really care about the game. And when we all log into that call to try to help the next season be better than the first one, it's just cool to see an international collaborative effort from a very wide range of people. Like we all have different careers, we all have different lives, but then when we log in, we are, Shiny, Frost, Chickeneater, and Donut. We're just people that are so familiar to each other, even though we're from completely different places. All right, so now I have a surprise topic I just wrote in our outline about relationships that I didn't really hash out because I wanted to surprise you. So in a few words or sentences, can you describe your relationship with the other two people in this here podcast?
Frost. Oh, go for it.
No, you start.
All right. Well, like Frost and Jose and Moose are the first three people that I remember like truly becoming friends with in the game. I mean, we definitely hit each other up on MSN, and we definitely talked strategy for hours and hours. Well, I mean, I was in high school when I started. I think it was after high school that we met, because it was a little bit later, and then that's really just that. I mean, you guys. I mean, shoot, what do we call ourselves? We called ourselves the Rombi for a while, just the four of us.
That's right.
And then Phil, like I've met you. I went to New York a couple weeks ago and met you in person for the first time.
Yeah, we met in person.
Yeah. Which I got to play pickleball against you and do that, and that was a lot of fun. So that was pretty. I mean, I've known you for a very long time as well, but I think these last couple of years is when we really started to talk. I mean, we talk every day now.
Yeah, I would say so.
From my point of view, so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go. So, again, Derek and I go way back to those Rombi days. We were in high school. I remember having like conversations on MSN, not just about like HD, but even about like some life stuff. And I think I was talking to him about what my plans were with my prom date back then. And it's still wild that we're 20 years, removed from these types of things. And we've not met, but we live in two different places, but we're connected through this game. And so that's something I always like remember. And then with Phil, just first thing was the Rubik's Cube stuff. I was like, this is insane. And then just a really well-spoken, intelligent player who strategy I admire and I have immense respect for.
Yeah, Frost wrote one of the first guides to HD I wrote. You said HD is like something that I probably shouldn't describe on a podcast, but it was very memorable. I remember it. And you know what? HD is really like that. And it, yeah, I just remember everything you wrote in that guide. And that guide is foundational to HD. And that's just a piece of text in a help document on the board somewhere. And I think when I was a young player, FrosT was one of the resources for how to play the game properly. And so I was always looked up to the way he played because his history is much longer than mine. And same with Shiny, his history is much longer than mine. We go way back, but recently we've been talking more and more. And I think that's also, as we aged and we developed our careers, I came to understand we kind of work in the same industry. We both work in e-commerce, which is something we share with our friend Achilles as well. We all work in e-commerce. So even though we're different, we're kind of similar. And it's just good to communicate with everyone regularly now. I feel like, yeah, it's really weird because I spent a lot of time also not communicating with everyone because I took a break. But it's just so easy to pick it up again and just be like, yeah, we're friends. It just came so naturally.
I mean, I kind of do have to shout out Donut for really keeping me he kept hey, I'm going to make some changes to the mercs. Hey, I'm going to do this. Yes. And kind of kept me active as the developer of the game just this last year. And then it kind of all came together at the beginning of this year when we really started to bring in all the old veterans.
Yep. And a lot of credit goes to him for putting so much thought and effort and consideration into the game. And also playing the game himself. Yeah. He's been a very consistent player, and we need all of those things for this game to thrive. And he's definitely a big factor in the success of our
Definitely
community.
Agree. He actually is the one that was messaging me on Facebook Messenger to come back. So between him and Lancelot, they kind of brought me up from the dead. So
okay. FrosT never dies, though. HD goes forever.
That's right.
So we are playing Wiltshire season. What are we on now? It's
143.
143. Okay.
Yep.
143. We are in Wiltshire season 143, and after 143 reps, we're about 10 days away from the season ending, and we made some predictions on the top 5. And I think we saved them in the document, and so I guess I'll read what we all thought the predictions would be, and perhaps we can react to it. So Shiny predicted that Shiny, 4-Shard, Achilles, FrosT, and Chickeneater would be in the top 5. I said Chickeneater, FrosT, 4-Shard, Mystic Caterpillar, and Shiny. Obviously wrong about Mystic Caterpillar. I think that was aspirational. He has since completely tanked because of bi-level 27. And Donut predicted Azrael, Chickeneater, Crush of Demons, Too Dark Forever, and FrosT. So clearly did not vote for Shiny, so I think that's just maybe a mistake. But
well, at the time, he explained this to me because he was under the impression I was going to 27 and thought there was no way I was going to stay in the top 5 at bi-level 27, which, had that been correct, he would have been right.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And I think the Caterpillar thing was just me hoping for the best, but then it turns out that mathematically it's impossible to maintain that position at my level 27. So, but our lists are the same, like myself and Shiny, except he swapped Caterpillar for Achilles, which is a lot more reasonable and more realistic. So right now, actually, no, Achilles is ranked 5, but Shiny hasn't done his attacks, so Shiny will actually displace Achilles, hopefully, after the attack. So for FrosT, was there anyone in the in the player base 10 days ago where you thought would be top 5 material that kind of surprised you, or were your thoughts similar or different from ours?
I'm inclined to agree with your list, Phil. Maybe the ordering a little different, and I'm not sure. I think I was thinking about this before we came on, and I'm like, I think once I pass Crush of Demons, I don't think I'm going to be passed by anybody else again. The question for me is, for myself, can I catch the people in front of me? And based on how you and 4-Shard are playing, I really don't know. You guys are killing it every day. And if it were to be my top five, I would say I've got you, a chicken eater, just number one, Borchardt two, myself third, Shiny fourth, and fifth. I mean, I think I'm inclined to like Achilles. However, I do think Crush of Demons is doing a pretty good job. I thought they've done a really good job rebounding with their mounted merc. I spied him today, and it was like 500 defense, and I was like, wow, like seems to get the clue to build that up. And we'll be discussing defensive mounted later, I'm sure. So don't worry, everyone. But
Yeah,
he really
absolutely.
did a good job building his up, and so I would consider him a dark horse.
Hmm. I mean, Crush of Demons is the brother of Too Dark Forever, who's an HD champion.
Yeah,
So I'm sure perhaps they communicate a lot out of the game. And Crush of Demons had a consistent streak of playing HD about 15 years ago.
yep,
And I think he played in a time period where it was extremely competitive, and the top 10 in that sort of environment, means that you're pretty competent.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think his
Yeah.
setup kind of reflects that too.
Yeah. But I think definitely the biggest sort of surprise and half not surprise is Forshard, who
For
did
sure.
not have much of a documented history playing the game, but is playing like an absolute machine. He's just managed his risk extremely well, and obviously, I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning of the game that I like regret immensely, but I can't change anymore. So now I think he's holding a lead very intelligently, and I think that's the kind of competitive environment we need in this game. Like if you make one mistake, you kind of have to spend the rest of the season thinking about how to just dig yourself out of a hole. And that feeling of being in that hole, that's what makes HD really thrilling. Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, that's where I think I'm gonna have to claw my way to stay in that top five because Crush of Demons is right on that cusp of probably kicking me out of the top five with you three,
Mhm.
and then him, and then there's Achilles and I will probably be battling for that fifth place spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't count out Donut. Donut is donutting his way. 1844 experience today, so it's
It's
almost
solid.
yeah, it's pretty solid. And yeah, the attacking mounted builds are really interesting. Definitely, we'll revisit that topic later. Let's do a quick season recap. So the path from buy level 0 to buy level 20, there are a lot of different ways to do it, and starting mercs is always an interesting topic because so many different strong players start with different things. How did you guys start, and how do you feel about the way you did it?
So I started off with a defensive brave and an
Hmm.
offensive page.
Hmm.
It wasn't something I was super excited about. I'm still used to the grinders back in the day. Like I had just come off of a 7 year hiatus of the game, and so, but I noticed that the Braves had been fixed and changed, and I wanted to give them a try, definitely. And I
Hmm.
felt like a mount was a good way to transition from buy level 0 to buy level 9. I really didn't want to stop along the way to be dealing with buy level 2 and buy level 5. Like I just feel like the time spent selling a mercenary, raising a new one again, alliance battle, blah blah blah. I just didn't think it was worth it. I thought the page had enough power to get me to buy level 9, where then I could sort of start to build my setup like right from the bottom. And so I think for me, what I did a little different was I actually expanded my mercenary slots sooner, and I allocated a salary point. So I was able to have sort of the skeleton of my setup uh, in place at buy level 9, and actually ran like a junior version of it. It was an Amazon Strongman ARB at a Cav just to see how that would look. And then
Hmm.
I skipped by level 14 and went right to 20.
Gotcha. And how about yourself, Shiny?
Yeah, I also started with a brave, but I've been starting with a brave for forever now, and
Yeah,
mostly just
Forever.
because it
Yeah.
was always the agility. I always thought the Braves agility would take me farther than the grinder would. And that's why I always liked it, just for no other reason than that, because I go Brave to the Trog, and then the Trog takes me all the way to what is the final buy level now. And then I don't even remember what my second Merc was, and honestly, it doesn't really even matter at that at some point. You just got to have
I
something
think
that
you,
will do damage.
I think you went Archer.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, yeah, dairy
Yeah.
consuming bow, right? Shout out
That's
to
right.
dairy consuming bow. He can consume foods that I cannot touch. So, yeah, good stuff. I did exactly FrosT. I did Brave plus Page, but I'm very used to either Grinder Page or Brave Page. Like that's really normal for me. I'm not sure how that'll change next season, but I went up to a Trog and then I went to Berserker. So I had like for the last 2 days or 3 days, I had an attacking Berserker with a Cavalier. So I skipped the bi-level 14 Duke. Probably not the best idea, but it's okay. It's acceptable, and I'll think more about how I can make that transition better. And just so everyone knows, I do the bare minimum to get to by level 20. So it's no salary and 2 mercs. And playing like that is really scary because you're basically forced yourself to play a certain way and have tons of restrictions. And if your opponents aren't building in a certain direction and you're still forced to attack them because you've committed to attacking the highest value targets at all times. And playing with that much restriction is kind of, it makes your brain hurt sometimes. But again, I've lost enough to YB where I know like I'm fighting for my survival in most of these seasons. So I just pretend YB is there. I try my best to like not get behind. And that's kind of my path to by level 20, and I don't think that will change very much unless the game changes. I believe in 9 attacks, and I think it suits the way I think about the game. So by level 20 is where lots of players ended, and by level 27 is where some people ended. So let's talk about the by level 27 players in the game. We have a few of them. If you just scroll down a little bit, because they're not at the top, we have Ioba, Bagel, Mystic Caterpillar are what I believe the top by level 27 players are. And they have different builds. So I think Ioba and Mystic Caterpillar are pretty similar. They each have attacking Barons, except Ioba has an Executioner from the previous by level, and Caterpillar opted for the Whipman because he ran offensive mercs on his way up, and you can't keep those because those are really bad. I think one difference is once you sell those mercs, the offensive mercs are useless and they can't be used against you by other people picking them up in the merchant. But they have attacking mount setups, and then Bagel has this ridiculous build where it was just like, yeah, I want one of everything. Maybe it's an everything Bagel, but it has like, let me see, Savage, Chainsman, Spy, Deathbow. So it's just absolutely wild, and these are the top by level 27 builds. What are your guys' thoughts on by level 27, and just generally, how do you feel about it?
I think it's a good way to have a good HD experience. I think you have the access to the stronger mercenaries. I think you build too much of a hole by thinking those allocation points into the buy level to really contend for a top spot. But again, some players aren't necessarily looking to like be placement 1. They just maybe when they want to beat people up. With regards to these specific setups, I think the Mystic Caterpillar one and the Aoba one, there was a lot of talk last season as to how by level 27 should have been handled, and I think those 2 players this time around got it right. I think the option was to either keep the by level 20 Executioner and run 3 Barons, and the other option was to go with a Chainsman, which would take care of the predominant melee, the Executioner. So I think they kind of just did what other people should have done last season. So I really like those setups, and Bagels is very entertaining as well. It's it's like a value pack.
It's crazy.
All comes together.
Yeah, there are how many Chainsmen? There are 3, right?
Yeah.
1, 2,
check
3. There's the Axeman Executioner, there's the Cocainesman, and there's FrosT.
Favorite one.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I wonder, like, how those attacks go and how it feels to know that you have to crit the enemy front line in order to win most of the time. So you either get horrendously lucky or just horribly unlucky. That's
Yeah.
the thrill of playing this ridiculous build. So the flip side is by level 20, and there are generally two types of by level 20. There's the standard HD triangle, and then there's the let's buy as many mounts as possible. So Frost and I play triangle. We play triangle all day, and Shiny this season elected for the mount sort of approach. Can you guys describe how it feels to play your setup and how comfortable it is, and what parts are comfortable and what parts perhaps make you feel a little insecure?
Well, I'm going to say the attacking mounts are very comfortable to start. You know, the mounts are a lot stronger than the defensive mounts immediately. Like, so those first few days, you know, I was maxing out almost 100%. And that, you know, I was maybe skipping both of you guys just because you guys have some of the strongest melee mercs, which just can't be killed by the knights right now. But, like, you know, there's just those peaks, those plateaus for the knights where you wait for that 23 sword, and then I think the 28 sword is the next one. And then before you hit that 23, you have a long period of waiting where you're not getting anything. And then right now, I'm going to have that same problem. I haven't done my attacks yet today, but I know it's going to be an uphill battle for me without those 28 swords.
Gotcha.
I think for the triangle, I call it the triangle +2 or the tribo setup. I'm a basketball player or a former player, so box in 1, triangle in 2. That's the reference there. But it was just sort of a twist on the classic setup with melee defenders, mounted defender, sandwiched by a bow. I wanted to have the 3 bowmen so I could have more command of the battle script. I knew that I was going to be going up against setups that had multiple mounted, and I thought there might be 1 or 2 people that would have like 1 bow as well. And so by having multiple bowmen, I am able to limit how often and how much pressure is being put on my defenders, and I can apply that pressure right back on them. And so, like, I did my attacks today, and I was talking about it, and it's a lot of my battles are typically like death by paper cuts. It's not the big 3-4 hit. You're getting like 50 here, 70 there, 103 here. Like, some of the battles that I've had with a 4-shard or a Chickeneater, they're going like 900 lines, 1200 lines, 700 lines, really good long battles. And so those aren't exactly comfortable. But I think when you're going 3-on-1 with the bow, you do feel pretty good about it. I'm very, very happy with how my defensive mounted has gone. And we're going to get into this, and I'll kind of just tease it a little bit. But when I first decided to go with the 1 mount, I was a little nervous. You know, I knew there were going to be people running 4, 5, maybe even 6. I think Jib has like 8, although they're by level 14. But regardless,
by level 14,
I knew there was a lot of mounted out there, and I did question if it was going to work. But I just, and we can talk about it more later, but I believed in the survivability of 1 defender and the ability to use the gladiator pit to ensure survival, right? Because when you have 2 mounted setups attacking each other, for example, you're not going to have pure survival. If someone's going to get somebody, mounted is very much a game of Russian roulette. So I really just wanted to have some stability, some strong defense, and then power.
Yeah, I think Frost and I came up with the tribo independently with no reference to each other's builds.
I'm so disappointed, man. I thought I had
one of us felt like a jerk. We were like, "Oh, I got him this time," because like last season we were 3 points away from each other at the end. So I think this season we were just trying to figure the other guy out, but then we arrived at the same thing.
That was very satisfying and disappointing, but sorry, continue.
That was hilarious.
No, Frost did message me that morning. He's like, I can't believe Phil got three bows.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of grown men telling each other, "Oh, I can't believe the other guy bought a thing on."
Pretty much, man. Because
Yeah,
I copied, just for reference, before you continue, I had copied more or less what Chickeneater had done in the previous season. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Let me come up with something with a twist. Lo and behold, sorry, continue, man.
I'm going to put a different twist on the tribo next season. I'm going to try.
Well, how do you feel about what 4-shard did with a similar setup? He didn't get those 2 extra bows, but basically it has everything else the same.
Yeah, it's effective as Archer hits hard and he manages his risk. I think part of it is build, part of it is risk management and his mechanics as a player. And his build is very good, and his mechanics are clearly very good. So, yeah, it works. I feel safer with more lines on the script, like FrosT said about like, you know, taking the initiative in the script. But I think that's a legit way to play, and it shows because he's winning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very, very interesting. So there are some setups out there that really don't conform to what we just talked about. So, for example, if you guys pull out your spies, log into HD for this, look at Marduk, for example. He has this interesting build where he has an attacking berserker, an attacking enforcer, two attacking enforcers, an attacking knight, a defending knight, another defending knight, and an outlaw. So this is really strange. Marduk is working something very unconventional, and this is, I think, we might need to ask him someday, like, what was your thought process behind this, and how does this lineup perform in battles against more conventional setups? Like, I would love to hear that his outlaw has created a few berserkers, or
Yeah,
that his
absolutely.
attacking berserkers put in some damage before he died to an archer. You know, like I really want to see what it feels like to play, uh, from this account. So Shiny, if you can just like hook us up with his password, we can do an attack. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we take account security very seriously in HD. So what happened in previous seasons of HD was when you allocate to one mercenary, you get one slot. And that has basically created this meta where people do the bare minimum to have a stable team, and that's where the lean build comes in, where you have one executioner, one bowman, and one defense knight, and that is very effective, but also attracts a lot of complaints from people who say that the game is kind of lacked creativity and is not about the final bi-level build anymore because there's only one way to actually build if you want to win. But now the game has changed where you have 2 slots per allocation for mercenaries. And so your ability to express yourself is, definitely wider. And we see some guys with one executioner and 2 bows, or we have the 4 shard with executioner, berserker, and 1 bow. So I think the room for creativity is already growing. So the question for you guys is, what future trends do you predict, and where do you see this? Where do you see this going? Do you think people will stay with 4 mercs, 6 mercs? What do you think is going to consistently win these seasons?
I think I think a lot of it's going to depend, obviously, on the next 10 days and how that plays out. But what I see is I see 6 mercs being here to stay. I think this is one of the best sort of changes in recent memory. I mean, I haven't been around, but at least since I've been playing, it's seen the most, I would say, change in overall gameplay.
Yeah,
In terms of where I see it going, yeah, I still think 6 mercs is the way to go. Um, Not so sure the salary point is needed. That's something I typically use, and I'm questioning if I'm going to use it again in future seasons. But definitely 6 mercs.
yeah. I think 4 mercs is possible, but you have to be really, really careful.
Yeah, if
And
Yeah,
Forshard is perfect for the rest of the season, I mean, he has a chance of staying ahead of both of you.
yeah,
yeah,
and
absolutely,
that's it's a real possibility. And if that
absolutely.
happens, it'll demonstrate that 4 mercs is winnable with the current player pool uh, that we have. Cool, cool, cool. So we have a separate area in our HD Discord where we asked a lot of questions that, or not, sorry, I'll redo that so we can edit it. We have an area in our Discord where we invited people to ask questions about gameplay and the future of the game. And so we had 2 older questions that we just want to address really quickly, and then we'll go to the fresh questions that people submitted. So one of the older ones was asked by Azrael, who is also a very prominent player in this game. He was watching one of our videos, and we were spying, and he was wondering how we knew he sold a Merc. Right? I think this was Cloak and Dagger, and we also knew when Donut sold his Merc. And just so everyone knows, in the spy log, if the Merc has a dash next to their name, it means they've been sold that day. And interestingly, I didn't really know that until Achilles told me, and then he gave me the same sort of like surprised look, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought this was common knowledge, right?" I don't know if you'll find a player like that in the in the sort of spy Big Hairy Snake. Shout out to Big Hairy Snake. Joined the season late, but he's trying his best. He's a great player.
Yeah, and he's up to buy level 27. That's the way to play the game. If you come in behind, you got to hit buy level as hard as possible and try and smash everybody in front of you.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
And Cheech, can archers actually counter if a melee or horse miss an attack? And this was asked publicly multiple times, and the answer is no, archers cannot counter. So that is not a thing that exists.
Yeah, and two things that could be made more clear in the game for sure. Like, I'll add a note to the spy that says, hey, if, the dash denotes this, and then the mercenary purchase screen has 2 improvements coming to show that, hey, the knifeman can hold 2 knives. Like, that's not... I don't think it's even explicit anywhere until you go to the blacksmith and it shows double knives when you're trying to buy stuff. And even that, it's, it's not explicit, is just all I'm saying there.
Yeah. All right, now to our first fresh question from Ngibby32. And of course, if we pronounce your name wrong, please let us know. We want to pronounce it correctly next time you ask a question. Ngibby32 asks, does it feel like defensive mounts are too strong versus attacking mounts? I'm running with 4 attacking mounts at by level 27 and 1 defensive by level 20. Can totally stop me. So what's the deal here? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, there's 2 parts to this. One is, I don't think 27, the payoff is there, versus by level 20. I mean, you lose 7 allocation points, which is basically 4 days of attacks, and you should really be able to smash through pretty much anything by level 20. Maybe not immediately, it can't be like you get to by level 27 and it's over, but... And then the other thing is the agility too high for them to break through? And I'm seeing that right now is I can't beat anything. I'm only at by level 20, and those top 10 builds are very difficult for me to attack right now.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it twofold. So I think the first thing is we have to look at, from an attacking mounted standpoint, its survivability versus a defensive mount. Now, albeit defensive mounts do struggle with counters and things like that, but when you have offensive mounted attacking, especially if you're attacking other offensive mounted, you're going to have casualties. And so the setup that I've built and the setup that like Chickeneater, 4Shard, etc. have built, we're banking on every battle we win, our mounted's going to survive. I'm going to be able to level up quicker, and I'm going to be able to stack on that agility. I'm going to have access to better armor. I'm going to have access to axes quicker, so I'm not getting countered as often. And so that's where, I look at it. So, the question being, is it overpowered? I don't tend to think so. I think it's just sort of the purpose of the mercenary, what it's meant to do, and how it interacts in the battle script. If it's dying all the time, then it doesn't matter how powerful it is because you can't allocate anything to it if it's dead. Right? So that's sort of my philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for me, I think I want to make as many builds as possible viable. And I think for winning the game, a pure mount-focused build is not viable because they die a little bit too much and it's very volatile and unpredictable. I do understand that attacking mounted have some sort of advantage in a battle because if they break through the back door, they're going to kill archers. And then a person with the triangle just falls apart.
Yep.
So with the defensive mount, if I kill FrosT tank knight, I don't get to attack as archers. So the compensation is more for an attacking mount, but the risk is also more. And I think it just needs to be balanced in a way where it's healthy. I think a person with 5 or 6 knights should be able to beat 1 knight, but it's also very complicated because sometimes the 1 knight belongs to Chickeneater, who by level rushed with 9 attacks and 2 mercs and just happened to get to final buy level faster and pitted his knight every day. And this is like the worst case scenario for any knight player. It's just certain players reach buy level 20 very quickly and have just a very big thing that perhaps you shouldn't beat, and other people who don't reach the buy level fast enough or don't pit their knight, I think those knights should be, killable by defensive mounts. And this game is being played in real time, so people don't make perfect decisions all the time, and so it's really hard to say like, are attacking mounts categorically too weak, because really you're taking the outcome of a person's decisions over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and using that to fight against the outcome of another person's 3-week long string of decisions. And a lot can happen in those 3 weeks. So yeah, it's a hard question to answer, but I would like to see at least by level 27 tuned so that it doesn't feel like a struggle to level, because I always hear from the by level 27 people in my alliance, it's such a chore. Like, they thought it would be cool when they got there, but then when they got there, they were like, shoot, I have to raise babies again. Yeah. And then they're scared that these mercs are going to die in the alliance battle, and so they're requesting like easier alliance battles, and it just seems kind of weird for by level 27, which is a really steep cost. And so maybe that, and then I think there are some other suggestions from Donut for a pit for mounted units so that everything can be pit equally. And maybe that can give some stability to attacking mounts and some compensation. Because the other issue is defense mounts get new armor every level they level up, but attacking mounts don't get a new weapon until every 5 levels. And so the growth of the defensive knight is a lot smoother and more granular versus the attacking mount, which doesn't get that much growth until the next power spike. And of course, enhancing armor is much more gold efficient than enhancing one weapon. So there are a lot of there are a lot of factors that point to offensive mounts not being the perfect solution for winning a season. I don't believe it is, and I think the game should be tuned in a way where offensive mounts, if you reach by level 20 well and fast, you should be able to win if you manage your risk really, really carefully. And I don't really see that happening, so we need to pay attention to that. But at the same time, it's hard because we're humans playing this game. Yeah, thank you, NGibby32, for this riveting question. So here's another simpler one from Ben Zeratol. Am I allowed to give up yet? So I think that was kind of a joke when you put it in there, but we're going to answer this question anyway. Please don't give up. Especially players as strong as Zeratol. He's been around for a long time. He's won HD. It's just, I think what HD teaches you is some things are outside your control. So if they disappoint you, just be strong and continue doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to sort of chime in, like he's been a player in every era who's been successful at like the highest level, and I kind of look at his season back, like my first season back in January when I first came back. I had no idea what I was doing, but I built this random setup, and I was just getting like my teeth kicked in because I wasn't aware, but I hung through it, stuck it out, you finish it, and start fresh.
Yep. HD always gives you a fresh start. Yeah. And for Shiny, what's your sort of opinion on players giving up? Like, how do you feel about that?
I feel like it's different for me than it is for others because I've never won a season. My best, I did get second at one point, but like really like 4 is like my peak. Yeah, I don't remember what happened that second season. I don't even remember getting second, so I'm not sure how that happened. But like, I don't even have that many top 10. So like for me, that top 5, top 10 is meaningful. Those single digits are something that I still shoot for every season. So like, obviously I'm not going to win this season. I've lost the other day, and then I wasn't going to hang on either way. I knew that. But still finishing single digits is worth it for me. But somebody like Ben, like I can, like, this is Zeratol we're talking about, but he he's a champion. He's probably won multiple times. I don't know offhand how many times he's won, but I would guess it's a handful.
Yep.
And so playing at that level, like, you know, getting 12th place for him is not going to make him happy at the end of the day. So he's not really playing for anything. So I don't have that mentality of the, you know, first or nothing. Like, he kind of might have that life. I understand that perspective.
Yeah. I kind of think about it the same way. I'm either like, it's first place or you're a failure. It's very extreme, but I don't quit seasons if I do poorly either. Like, I just accept that I failed and I'll try again the next season. I'll try to learn something, like try to learn why it didn't work out the way I wanted. And some of it's just the inputs of the other players are just too good. Maybe that's just the reason. And you need to play more like them or something. So yeah, that's, I really, really, really look down on quitting. I think also from like a social aspect, you are letting your alliance down. Our alliances are filled with a lot of, you know, people who love to communicate, and we built a network of friends. And then for a guy to say, "Oh, I clicked the wrong button, peace out," you know, like it's a little disappointing. And just want to give my shout outs to my friend Beck. I don't think he'll watch this, but if you are watching this, hope you're doing well. You're a great player, and most people don't understand why he's a good player. He's scary good. And, you know, maybe, you know, I lost an attack this season. It was a really bad idea to do it. It was just really stupid. But, you know, I think he lost one. And he would still be in a position to contend if he had continued playing. So, yeah, just because it's not perfect, does not mean you should just give up. And I think HD is it teaches you that life lesson.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of things you can learn just by playing it through, right? Like if you don't play it through and then you come back in a few seasons, you might not have learned what you could do to adapt. And you know what I mean? It's a missed opportunity for sure.
Well, especially because the game evolves every season. And when you see what somebody did to win, or like, I wanted to go 27 originally this season because I played it so poorly last season. But then I was kind of in a position to finish in the top 5 without going there. So I changed my mind kind of at the last second. But that's like, you just want to learn what other people, like, you don't get a feel for it by just talking to it. Hey, what happened last season? What'd you do last season? But actually seeing and spying 50 people every day really gives you that touch that you can't get anywhere else.
Unless you're Beck.
Right.
He hadn't played for 10 years and he was super sharp. Until he gave up.
Until he wasn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe he got unlucky. I don't know, but like, yeah, he was super sharp. Some people just have that intuition, but if people don't have that intuition, which is the majority, you really do need the experience of playing every day to get a feel for it, and then you'll just develop it. All right, our good pal Achilles asks, "Why am I so bad?" So I don't think we should just like start throwing tomatoes at Achilles, but what are some common mistakes you see players make, and how do you avoid them?
Target selection is always it's the most important thing in the game. And so especially with, like, Achilles has a very similar setup to mine. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's ahead of me because I think he went the 9 attacks, right? So he's got everything a little bit higher level. But you have to look at you got to look at every single mercenary on their lineup, because there's always something to look out for, especially with volatile setups like the mass mounts or mass melee setups that we have. It's, you know, there is no fluke when it comes to our thing. We could lose to anybody just because you get the wrong thing attacking your guy, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of mistakes people make, I think attack sequence and how you go about your business matters, right? Like if you have 14 attacks, you don't necessarily just go from top down and like you're attacking the strongest player first, or even just at a more nuanced level. Like if you have a setup that's skewing more towards, so say I have a knight that's going to double level, I know that's going to be a position of strength, then maybe I want to focus on getting my knight to double level so I can attack the offensive mounted brigade people, right? Or if I have my bows double leveling, I'm like, okay, so I'm going to hit my mounted people first, get the bow leveled up so I can hit my melee targets better. Like, I think the way people sequence their attacks needs to sort of be revisited if you're finding that you're spinning your wheels in the dirt, not just who the targets are, but when you're attacking them,
Yes.
based on your mercenaries leveling up, based on how you're spending your gold. And yeah, there's a lot of others, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And my point is a little bit nuanced, but just for the more experienced players out there, your vision for your path through the bi-level rush is really important. I'm a huge bi-level rusher, and to know and anticipate what other people are going to build the next day is going to really help you stay ahead of your attacks and build your team in a way that can kill high-value targets the day after. So this has kind of been sort of impacted by the multis that play repetitive builds, and then people are starting to just like build towards killing the multis, which I hope in the future doesn't happen because it just makes the game slightly less dynamic. But yeah, anticipating what people will build, building around it, knowing when you'll transition, knowing when your mercs will age to a point where they're not useful, just having like a macro sort of framework in your head for what your game will look like is really helpful. And then having the ability to pivot if people's builds change unexpectedly is another important thing to keep in mind. But for the experienced players, bio-level rushing, always have a plan for when things are going to when certain things are going to happen in the game, so that you don't feel like you're improvising every day, because you really shouldn't be. Yeah. So the next question comes from our game leader, Forshard. He's asking, is it possible to add more stats to the merc page? Or, perhaps the battle script, stuff like numbers of attacks, dodge, damage dealt. And I must admit, during my hiatus, I was cheating on HD with another game, played a lot of Teamfight Tactics, and that's Riot's auto chess game. So I played a lot of auto chess, and in all of these auto chess games, it actually tells you what each of your units did in terms of like damage received, damage dealt, is it magic damage, physical damage, true damage, etc. So you can better evaluate the productivity of each unit. And the battle script that we have now tells you, but you actually have to either write a script yourself or just read very carefully what's happening. So I think certain summaries of merc productivity would actually be pretty useful and would elevate the quality of the game, because it'll give people more of an understanding of what merc is being productive and where merc is not being productive. Do you guys have any thoughts about what information players should get in the battle script beyond just the script itself?
Well, first, I can't believe that, no one ever said this to me directly before. This is the first time I've ever heard this request. Because we have, more advanced stats at the bottom of the Alliance battle. You can see the amount of damage your merc did, what line it died on, and, how many kills it got. You get a basic summary of that, but, I just can't believe this is, the first time it's ever occurred to me. Because... Yeah. I have no problem with adding more. Any stat that we can add, we should have available to you somewhere. There's no reason to not keep a total damage for the lifetime of the mercenary, the total damage taken, the amount of counters, or the amount of I can't think of what specific stats we should have, but any stat we should think of, we should start saving, because it's not back when this game was created in 1999, 2000, database speed and storage was at a premium. Right now, everything is cheap and easy to store, so we can store any number for any amount of time. And I want to continue. I want to think of anything we can store and start storing it.
It's luxury.
Definitely, I think it's a really good question. I think it's a really good thing that could really help the game further, right? When we think about our lives outside of HD, a lot of times we use data to make decisions. And so I don't see any harm in having more of that data. And I think as we hope to grow the community and bring more people in, these will be the kind of tools that can help new players learn the game. So if they have a mercenary that is missing all the time, and there's a stat called accuracy, then maybe you might want to be more inclined to add to accuracy. Even if you're not super involved in the community, you can figure these things out intuitively on your own. Mm-hmm. Oh, how much damage am I absorbing? I'm absorbing not enough. Well, maybe I need more defense. it helps guide decision making. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah, totally. And these, I mean, you can calculate this based on the battle scripts that you do. So this is, technically it's publicly available information. We're just making it easier for people to get it. And I think that type of information is totally fair game to just give to players for their convenience so that they don't have to count it themselves. And maybe it's another conversation to give them information that they wouldn't be able to access publicly, but this just happens to be easy data that we should give people. And definitely, I think, we should figure out what aspects to display to the user. Maybe there could be two different types, like basic stats, and then a lot of apps have advanced stats where you can look at just pretty much anything, even if it's not relevant, it's just there, just so that you can see it.
Well, if you like High Descent, you're gonna like stats and numbers. Like, if you don't like that, you're just not gonna like the game or enjoy playing this game. So if you could go to a page and just see just the craziest, most minute little numbers, you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and you know what? It's gonna be really cool to visit the museum.
Yeah, exactly.
And see whose archer did the most damage today, or which melee merc tanked the most amount of hits.
Yeah, in addition, one thing we don't do really well right now is store enough information at the end of a season, because we've been looking back at seasons 10 years ago and we get a list of the top 50 and that's pretty much it. We don't know how many experience points they have. Like, there's just so much more we could store there too, to look at the history.
Or what Donut did.
Yeah,
we don't know, we won't remember, so we need to figure out what everyone did and what the narrative of the season was.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think that some sort of storytelling element to put in the museum for posterity would be really cool.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So the next thing on our list is submitted by Donut, and it was a fairly long commentary on attacking mounts. I think we addressed a lot of attacking mount things already, but he was the one who suggested the separate arena option for mounts only. And definitely, I think we should make it a focus to figure out what we want for the game in terms of attacking mounts, because the worst case scenario, or one worst case scenario, is it just becomes the only way to win the game, and then we've just turned the game upside down. And now attacking mounts is the only way to win the game, but it's a crapshoot, because if everyone has 6 attacking mounts and they're all hitting each other, it just becomes really unpredictable and very emotionally unsatisfying. So,
I mean, right now, the biggest problem with mounts right now is if you have one level 23 mount that is defensive, and I have 3 level 23 attacking mounts, in theory, that should be like a 50-50, maybe even a little advantage towards the attacking mounts, because of the 3-to-1. I mean, in reality, you would get hammered by 3 attacking guys versus the 1. There's a balance that maybe needs to be tweaked there to make it a little bit more, I don't want to skew it more towards the attacking side, but it should be more even than it is, maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely, I definitely agree with that. And to your point about making it all about offensive mounted, there have been seasons way back in the past where people were running 40 or 50 princes,
yeah.
And that was just an absolute nightmare. We definitely want to get back there, but perhaps there's a way we can help with the survivability and viability of offensive mounted buy levels.
Yeah, totally. There are a lot of creative ways to do it, so I think we should work together to make it healthy. Yeah, make it healthy for sure. Okay, cool. So we got a user-submitted question from Achilles. So our Discord is very active, and we're getting questions in real time. So he asks, can you also talk about the health benefits of consuming chicken? So, I'm the chicken eater, so I guess I can opine on it a little bit. So chicken is great because it has protein, which is essential. It helps you maintain muscle and build bone mineral density. which is really healthy, and having protein also leads to better weight management and protection against certain diseases like heart disease. Chicken also contains certain acids that regulate your mood, which is really nice. And there's also other nutrients in chicken, and it tastes really good. What do you guys think?
I think it tastes good. It's versatile. You can
Yeah.
do it all different kinds of ways, there's a reason why they say, random things that we don't know what they are taste like chicken.
Mhm. Yeah, chicken. Everyone's a chicken eater, unless you're vegan.
I mean, my
But
ultimate
they have
go-to
vegan
meal.
chicken too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Chicken's great. I don't know why I named myself what I am. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I'm 34 years old. I think like some people had the impression that I was some like maniacal serial killer that's like, oh, chicken, like just a regular guy. Can you imagine if HD got really big and like, you know how like some esports have like these like household names that are really famous, and like we're all on the street and we're chilling, and the kids like, look, it's Chickeneater. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, maybe if it gets so big, we won't be good players anymore, and the game will be dissected to such a science that if you're not just not perfect, you're just nothing. Maybe that'll be the case. I don't know, but
I
I just
think
think, yeah.
I think to that end with the name thing though, there's a lot of memes and jokes about like what our first email was, for example, right? And I think we can all sit there and look at our first emails and be like, oh, it was a little bit embarrassing or whatever, it's silly or whatever. And because a game like HD stems back to, in our case, when we were that age, it
Mhm.
shouldn't be a surprise that we would come up with these sort of fun names that we might not pick in our 30s.
Hey, Frost and Shiny are very normal guy names. They're good. All right, what's the most ridiculous name you've seen on HD?
Hmm.
That's a good question.
Yeah, give me your like top
Oh,
ridiculous HD names.
so there was a player before. His name is Kevin, real life, and he
Okay.
lives in Kitchener, Waterloo, Ontario. Like it's about an hour away, kind of actually between where like Jose and I used to live, like in between there. And his name was basically like, I don't know if we're supposed to swear on the podcast, but fuck you. But it was like FYUOCUK.
Oh, I
Oh
But it
yeah,
remember.
I
was
do
like
remember that
capital
one.
letters. So capital F, and then it was like small y, and then it was like capital U. So the fuck was capital, and the U was small, and it was all spaced out one by one. That's probably the most like wild name I've seen.
That's crazy. Yeah, there was a guy named Tyrannosaurus Sex. It's so juvenile. I think he was in my alliance for one season.
Uh,
And then I remember another guy who was in my alliance called Julius Seizure,
fuck.
and all his mercs were just historical figure like puns. It was really terrible. And then yeah, this game is ridiculous. You have all sorts of yeah, interesting. And then there's Donut. Like Donut is so silly, but he's actually a pretty serious dude. Like he gets down to business. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
his name is Donut. Yeah,
Shout out to Rich Homie, is it? Yeah, Big Hairy
yeah, Rich
Snake. There's
Homie,
some good ones that
Big
are
Hairy
modern
Snake.
too. So we've got a lot
Yeah,
going on. Yeah.
yeah, 420 Weed Wizard. Um, dude, he made a new alliance called High Descent. It's
All right,
so
that's pretty
bad.
good.
Yeah, there are two people in this alliance. They're both like 10 and 11.
Oh my God, that's fantastic.
And yeah, I like how Big Hairy Snake and Mystic Caterpillar are both all caps.
Intensity
Yeah, it's just
at all
intense.
times.
Yeah, and then there's like the most like normal medieval name, Lancelot.
Classic.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just like, Lancelot. Too Dark Forever is pretty cool too. Like I can totally like if that was like a metal band or something from like the early 2000s, like I would be like, okay, yeah, I listen to Too Dark Forever, or
Yeah,
Crush of
totally.
Demons, like, very cool names, very cool names. So we had Edgy Saint make a comment in the Discord about how gambling should be less RNG and there should be more information available. What are your thoughts on that? I think it was in the context of jousting.
I do think it's another thing that could be more explicitly stated in the game is how much you win from your bet, because you don't know unless you experiment, and maybe that's not as fun for people who don't know. If you're new and you go in there, well, I would like to know what I'm risking and what I'm going to benefit from taking that risk.
Yes.
I'm not sure I necessarily agree about it being less random, because it's gambling.
The definition of gambling is RNG.
No, I think it needs to stay that way.
Yeah, but more information is always better. Yeah,
I agree with.
Quickly know it's positive expected value.
Yeah.
And then Donut had another discussion about training alliances for beginners, kind of like a mentorship system where we would be running alternate accounts to play with newbies so that they can understand what to do. And I think the effort has to do with player retention. Once we attract those players to make an account, how do we make them feel welcome in our community so that they stick around and rank up with us? So I guess, what are your guys' thoughts on the subject of player retention?
I think retention is the key to growth, right? We're trying to build a community here, and I think what brings us back is that sense of community. And so it's really imperative that we provide that, whether it's through our Discord, whether it's through game mechanics like alliances, whether there's even other things like, I think there's the welcome scrolls that some players receive, because when you're coming in, there's really, 15, 16-year-old me wrote some articles. I know you wrote some articles as well, but it's not necessarily easy to find. It's not as accessible. And I know that some of us have been recording our attacks and posting them on YouTube. I know that we really try to get the Discord out there, but I think retention is how we grow this game. I think it's, we're starting with a small base and we're casting that net out, and we're bringing in fish or whatever you want to call them. I think we need to keep them. And think that the more, because HD is a game of decision making and there's so many different ways people can approach the game, the more people would probably indicate we'll have more of a variety in terms of strategies, and it can make the game even more dynamic.
Yeah, I think the auto scroll thing is really nice. When I was a beginner and I was approached by the shifters to play, I was like, oh my goodness, it was starstruck, right? It's like this player with all these badges next to their name with all these big numbers. They're giving me the time of day. Sparkster gave me the time of day. My life's fine. My life is complete, right? So I think having experienced players that are credentialed, talk to beginners. That's amazing. That's you sign up for League of Legends and then Faker DMs you, or I'm not saying any of us is Faker, but a player that is really well known can sit down and talk to you. I think that's really cool. And while our community is still on the smaller side, I think it's very possible. And maybe if we mentor those people can then mentor more people themselves, and it just creates this ecosystem.
The snowball effect.
Yeah. And training alliances in the past have been very good for the game. We've had a few of them come through. Dadex Alliance was always a good training alliance. Yes. Lancelot had the So Hot in Training for a while, and that one was a good place for people to start. But
even so go ahead. Sorry,
I was going to move on to another thing, but go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say even someone who's heavily involved in a game like Donut. That's how he got started. He was in Bounty Hunters 2, which was a trading alliance that Sir Vincent had purchased. And, he had picked up something off the merchant, a really strong mercenary, didn't know what to do, reached out. We were able to kind of work with him, and he really learned the game, and look at him now.
Yep. Charity and Charna were in one of those training alliances as well.
And then they came into your alliance and he backstabbed you.
Oh no.
They were like, you own HD? I'm gonna smack you. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you confused them, right?
Well, yeah, right. I was meaning to attack Charity and I attacked Charna, which it happens, but
they're the same until they're not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, then it's very telling. Another thing about retention is that like Forshard is like the youngest and in the game, and you look at his profile and he's only been here for 6 years as opposed to 15 years like everybody else. So like there's nobody in the game that's been here like 6 months that is playing every day and finishing in the top 50, and that's rough. My theory was always, we were around forever. We were all part of the DevCom, and every tweak we made it a little bit harder the learning curve went up a little bit more every time we made a change. And now that learning curve is almost impossible to get over at the moment.
Unless you're Forshard.
Right.
Then you learn faster than all of us.
It only took him 2,000 days.
Yeah.
It speaks to the power of alliances, though, right? Because
Right.
I know that like when you're connected to that community, you can run ideas by each other, and it kind of goes back to some of our memories that we spoke about at the beginning of the pod, like going on MSN Messenger, and what's the 2024 version of that, right? What is it where you copy and paste your stats and you put it in MSN, and I'm doing something else, and a message pops up from Jim, and it's like hey, here's my knight, or here's my whatever. And so I think we have that in Discord, and there have been a few players already who have reached out in the mercenaries section, and I would encourage anyone who's listening to this who has questions to continue to do that, because I go there, and I know other players have as well, and we can share feedback together, and again, it's a really useful tool, and I think this is the 2024 version of MSN Messenger.
Yeah, we're all really nice and professional. I think the only person that has the potential to be mean is Caterpillar. But
Oh yeah,
he doesn't say anything unless you like do something to him. So yeah, I think like generally, we're a great community, and we're always looking to help. Even the experienced players that seem really focused on themselves always have time to take that focus and give it to a player asking questions. So definitely ask your questions. So what's next for HD from the development perspective? What have we learned this season? What are the takeaways?
I think these changes we have are going well. Like the mercenaries are a hit. We have we have a couple 4s, but most everybody's at 6, and then we have people with 8 and 10 in that top 25 range right now. So that's really cool. It really opens up having fun. Not necessarily competing for GP1, but when you can buy 10 mercs, you can do anything you want to do.
I love that.
I think we're seeing a diversity of setups. I know it's not exactly perfect, but I think you look at a guy like Marduk, who's playing like a mad scientist right now with like a little bit of everything, like the bagel setup, and I know they're 27, but still, just having the ability to have more mercenaries allows more expression of creativity, and I think that's great for the game. It's just a matter of a couple little things we need to tweak, perhaps. That's my main takeaway.
Salary on top of the allocations, or on top of the merc allocations, is a big change too. And with one salary point, you triple your salary from the base stat, and it helps a lot.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of money, and definitely the addition of the new merc slot, I agree, gives you more flexibility, and also helps you early game, because you're effectively getting 2 more guys to help you in the beginning. And I think that's really helpful for people who want to play a more stable, predictable early game. And it also makes it harder for people to buy level rush, because there's a possibility that they'll fight people with 4 mercs or 3 mercs or something along those lines. And so I think anything to complicate the game, to make it so that there is not one formula to win, is good for the game, because there should be multiple ways to win. And I think those changes are healthy. Rogues were also buffed. We need to really think about, is it consistent with the identity that we gave the rogue, the high agility, sort of lower defense type of thing? And maybe that's something we can more easily track if we have data in the battle log saying, okay, this berserker existed and it dodged so many arrow attacks because of its high agility, versus the executioner. Like, what does the berserker do that the executioner can't, and vice versa? Is it wise to be a 4-shard and build both of them, or is it better to be Dadak and have 2 executioners? We'll be able to measure that better with the data. But the fact that you can get 4 mercs and play a little more flexibly, I think is a huge thing. So Gotta ask a question to Shiny now that as the owner of the game, what would you like to see in the next season or the coming sort of months? If it's anything that's doable by the player base or us, we'll try our best to do it. But what would you like to see?
Oh, it's a pretty good question. My main focus has been getting the design more mobile ready and getting that main design up and running. And, it's the main button now, so I'm kind of forcing it on people. There's some quality of life updates in there that you can't get on the old design, especially, the Alliance battle is really the only thing that it tells you how much experience you're going to get before you do the attack now. And you don't, before it used to be a mystery how much, nobody had any idea what you were going to get from that. And, I still don't even know the formula that well, but at least it shows you what you're going to get.
For almost 20 years, I just attacked a lot blindly. And I didn't complain about it either.
Well, that was always because the Alliance battle is such a interesting element to the game because you're attacking people that that everybody in your alliance can survive for, because it's all about that mercenary experience. Doesn't matter, nobody really cares about earning the alliance points and the experience points and leveling up, because that doesn't really mean anything, because it's all about making your mercenaries stronger, and that's the number one priority in those battles.
Yeah, but it could mean something if we develop it.
Exactly. So from there, I'm not sure yet. I have a to-do list and they're all little things to do, but I don't know. I don't know how to answer that off the tip of my tongue here.
Yeah, but that's okay. If you're happy with how the game is working and we're constantly working on small improvements, that's an okay sort of vision for the game. It just means that we're very proud of the work we've done, and we'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with all the progress made this year. I hope everyone else is too. I mean, the number of people playing is higher than it's been in 10 years or so. So that tells me that people are happy with what's going on in the game. So
yeah,
we'll see if in 2 seasons, if it goes back down to 20 players, then maybe they weren't so happy with it. They're just living off the nostalgia for a month or two.
Yeah. Just gotta make some wild server. Yeah.
Melee Mayhem.
Yeah, well, so you can make a server that has certain restrictions every season. So one where you can only have at most 4 mercs, or mounts don't exist, or mounts and archers don't exist, or just really easy small changes that just completely change the fabric of the game and you have to rethink. A lot of repetitive games the auto chess games that I played when I was on that hiatus, I've played 10 auto chess games in a row, but each one is slightly different because there's a twist. And maybe when the player base gets bigger, we can think about adding the twist. But the original formula of HD is just so addicting. It's so fun. Yeah, and that's why people are logged into HD, even after their attacks, because they're looking at stuff.
Yep.
And they're thinking about stuff. I see people online all the time, especially with 4-shard. It makes me nervous.
And that's why I love the idea of packing the museum with more information, because that was one of my favorite things to do, was log in first thing in the morning, look at the museum, see who had the most losses, and write them down. So if it changed throughout the day, you knew who you could attack. It was such the museum was my favorite thing ever.
I think part of wanting to keep people engaged is to provide that information, right? They're going to be interacting with the game all day. It's going to be present of mind. It's going to be in their brains, and they're going to become sickos like us.
Can you see yourself playing in HD 10 years from now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
Easy.
Absolutely. Yes. I think if we're able to build on this momentum and really snowball it, and I think as we have this community here on Discord, and as we do things like this, and we create content, and we have people discussing the game and giving them a reason to come back the next day to do their attacks, I think that this game can absolutely grow, not to necessarily monster levels, but I think we could build a really good, robust community, and I could see that lasting for years to come.
No, you heard it here first. FrosT thinks High Descent is the next Candy Crush.
Yeah, we're better than Candy Crush.
Because we did have that conversation. there was a point in time in the mid 2010s where I only played on my phone. I had a 2 hour commute to work every day,
Oh
and I'm
my
like, what am I
goodness.
gonna do? And so like I would, download podcasts or murder mysteries or anything like that. But I was just getting into HD again. I'd come off like a year hiatus or something like that, and I was like, why don't I just do my attacks? And there's a lot of pinching and a lot of zooming and stuff like that at first. It wasn't perfect, but I really learned to actually enjoy that time. I felt sort of like my mind was being stimulated while I'm on my way to work instead of just watching stuff happen on a bus or listening mindlessly to a podcast. I was actually like my brain was thinking. I was crunching numbers. It was
Yeah.
great.
Now you can mindlessly listen to our podcast. Yeah. Except this was full of really good information, so it's not mindless. Yeah.
Quite the
All
opposite.
right. Yeah, quite the opposite. So, yeah, definitely if you're watching this, leave us feedback. Let us know how we did. Let us know what you want to hear about next. And definitely let us know if you want new guests on the podcast. I know, there are a lot of people in HD that people want to hear from. So I guess the last sort of question I have on this podcast before we conclude is who are the top three people in HD that you haven't sort of interacted with person to person that you really want to see and meet? Yeah, it's a tough one.
I mean, I would
Like you mean in
love.
the form of a podcast? Or are you talking about in
Well,
person? Or are you
just in
talking?
person, just to get to know them and be like, wow, you're this guy, you know,
I For me, Jib would be on that list. I think
Jib.
I've
Yeah.
admired his play for many years, and I've had some really like tough battles with him for like top placements and stuff like that. And there was a
Mhm.
point actually in that same era when I was commuting and playing where we would scroll each other all the time, and I really grew to like him, and I would love to meet him.
Mhm.
Yeah, Jib's a really nice guy, and he joined the Discord and was pretty active like the first week we had it open. But I
Yeah, I
guess
think he got busy.
he's just a really busy guy and kind of just doesn't have the time to interact like that. But I would also love to know Jib better.
Mm. Yeah, me too. My biggest sort of dream was to defeat YB, but YB does not play anymore, and I just recently learned that he was probably Jib. So yeah, like I wanna meet the guy. Very powerful player, can do basically anything he wants, and yeah, to pick his brain would be awesome. I think uh, yeah, to do that much with HD at a high level is really cool.
And the
So
great
I
thing
think
about the Discord is we have this direct access to anybody who wants to be part of the conversation now. And so,
mhm.
I get PMs from people that I had never really spoken to before in the game that have been around 10 years. And, they give me feedback or, hey, this is not working right. I love getting all that stuff.
Yeah, something's not working right on my HD. What's that like two next to my name? Like, what's that?
Oh.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh no. Okay, so yeah, it's been I think an hour and a half we've been talking, but like honestly, I think all of us can just talk about HD all day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's just the thing. So if you want to hear us talk about HD again, let us know, and we'll definitely do that. I think any excuse to do this is just going to cause us to want to do this. And again, if you want to see other people here featured as guests, that'd be great too. Just let us know. And if you want to volunteer as a guest, also tell us, and we'll figure out a way to arrange it. All right. So I am Chickeneater, FrosT, Shiny, three grown men that play a text-based video game, and
20 years.
for 20 years, and you were watching three grown men talk about the same text-based video game. Thanks
Because
for
it's
being
damn
with us.
good.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
All right.